The definition for the pre-list is quite a loose one, for Gibraltar based mainly on having a busy finance centre. But is that reason enough for this initial selection? And what does the ROC's inclusion on this list mean exactly? We put these questions to MEP Molly Scott-Cato, who forms part of the committee.
This is a very strange criterion because what they're saying is if you have a large proportion of your economy that's dedicated to financial activity, then that immediately casts suspicion on you. And I think that is very questionable. But at the same time, I do think we need to take seriously this issue of extremely low corporate tax rates, because what that's doing is attracting corporations to those particular jurisdictions, and then it means that we're all losing out on tax revenue that we need to invest in public services and roads and broadband and so on. Well, Gibraltar has already faced some scrutiny during the first taxa committee, but I think the important thing here is to question whether what the Commission is doing with a tax haven list is actually the right thing, because what I've found through my study of this area is that there are lots of different kinds of tax havens, and Gibraltar is not a secrecy jurisdiction, I would say, but at the same time it does have a very low tax rate. But the low corporate tax rate is similar to that in Ireland, and indeed Luxembourg has offered much lower effective tax rates. So I think really we need to be clear about what it is we don't like about certain jurisdictions and then design policy accordingly, rather than just having a straight list, this is a tax haven, this isn't.
This is an initial broad list, but what's the next step for the Commission? How will they go about deciding which jurisdiction they explore further?
Yeah, well, during the first round of the taxa committee, we actually passed a report suggesting that what we should do is limit EU funding going to these countries or jurisdictions, even if they're within the EU, and going to companies that are not paying taxes properly or are operating in some way to avoid tax or to encourage tax avoidance. And I think that's the way to go, to create that financial incentive for people to do better so that we can avoid this race to the bottom on tax. I think it really depends on what Gibraltar does in terms of its tax rate and in terms of transparency, because for different kinds of contracts different criteria might be relevant. So as I said, Ireland actually has a tax rate that's not much higher than that in Gibraltar, so if that's the concern of a government, then they would treat those two jurisdictions similarly. But if they're much more concerned about secrecy, then I think Gibraltar has a much stronger card to play.
The decision is planned for this autumn, with screening expected in early 2017.